Now, the tropics are heating up as we have a new system we'll be watching near Florida and the Gulf Coast as we go into next week. And your early September forecast. Does the heat return? We'll answer that question later on in today's video. If you're not a new subscriber to Weather on the Go, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below as I cover all of North America, including southern Canada, the United States, and the tropics on this channel with daily weather forecast updates to keep you ahead of the storm. And also make sure to press the thumbs up button as it helps to get all of this weather information out to as many people as possible. I definitely appreciate it. Looking here at the busy tropics across the North Atlantic right now, you do see a lot of tropical entities here. You see a tropical wave near the Yucatan Peninsula there as well. That will be an immediate threat to the United States next week. We see Hurricane Franklin soon to become Major Hurricane Franklin just to the west of Bermuda. We have another wave out here in the open water as a fish storm in the North Atlantic. And we also have another wave that will be moving off of Africa, producing the potential for development as we go into next week. And you can see all these different areas of interest here, including Hurricane Franklin there just to the northeast of the Dominican Republic. And that will be moving to the west of Bermuda as a major hurricane as we get into that Monday and even Tuesday time frame. So we're going to keep an eye there on Bermuda as it moves just to the west. And that will be continuing to remain at hurricane status all the way across the North Atlantic, missing the eastern portions of the Canadian provinces here. As we get into later on in the week, you can see Hurricane Franklin is a Category 1 right now, 75-mile-per-hour hurricane moving to the north-northwest at 7 miles per hour. The intensity level of Hurricane Franklin will be stepping up into Category 2 and eventually major hurricane status at Category 3 strength, especially during that Monday and Tuesday time frame before slowly descending back into Category 2 and eventually then into Category 1 strength as it pushes across the North Atlantic as a fish storm later next week. So tracking Franklin here today, a 996 millibar low just to the northeast of the Dominican Republic as a hurricane, a Category 1 as we go into early week. This is on Monday, August 28th. It will be over the very warm waters of the Western Atlantic. This will deepen to a 979 millibar low, a major hurricane, likely a Category 3 there on Monday as it approaches the western side of Bermuda. Then as it moves just to the west of Bermuda, it will peak around a 969 millibar low on Wednesday. This is August 30th, and this will likely be a stronger Category 3 type system as it moves to the west there of Bermuda. And looking at this, this will actually slingshot away from the United States with the help of a trough up here across the Great Lakes in the Northeast, bringing very pleasant and cool temperatures after our heat wave. We'll get to looking at those temperatures in a minute. But then looking here as we go into Friday, a lot of the models yesterday were showing this hitting eastern Canada. While we still could have impacts with strong winds, heavy rain, and also some waves out there, this system is more eastern loaded, so this will be more across the North Atlantic and be producing more of a storm for the fishes out there for portions of that Friday time frame. We have another tropical entity there across the southeast coast that will be pushing over the southeast. We'll be watching that. That's our next area of talk here. It has a 90% chance of development as it pushes towards the eastern Gulf and in towards northwest Florida as we get into the new week here in very warm waters, folks. This is sea surface temperatures. I know it's in degrees Celsius, but whenever you see 30, 31, even 32 degrees Celsius water temperatures, you're talking water temperatures Fahrenheit wise that is well into the 80s, if not the low 90s. So it is extremely warm in the Gulf of Mexico, the Western Caribbean, and really the Western Atlantic for that matter. And it does have some favorability here into next week. The European forecast model especially is showing there's still some wind shear around, but it does weaken a lot as we go into next week, especially going into Tuesday morning as it moves over as well the open waters of the eastern Gulf. So that will be kind of moving in tandem. We have wind shear that is favorable. We have the warm waters that are favorable. So this system will be strengthening as we go into next week. So looking at this as we go into tomorrow on on Sunday, August 27th. This is down near the Yucatan Peninsula here, producing some heavier rains for western Cuba, portions of Central America here. This is only a 1,006 millibar low on Sunday. As we go into Tuesday, this is going to slowly begin to strengthen here with the center of that low. The icon model takes it over the open waters just west of Cuba there. And as it has more residence time over the water, it will be strengthening here as we go into that Monday, Tuesday time frame. Likely still producing some stronger winds, possibly some heavy rain, some flooding there for western Cuba. The Florida Keys, we could also be seeing some rainfall with that as we go into Tuesday. Now as we go into Wednesday, Wednesday's the big day. We could be seeing a landfall there in northern or northwest Florida there near between the Tallahassee region and Tampa Bay, Florida. That's the area of interest where this could be making landfall as a hurricane. I'm thinking probably a Category 1 hurricane at least for Florida as we go into that Wednesday, August 30th time frame. And then that skirts right along the Carolina coast there from about Charleston, Carolina, through portions there of the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina region, and then right just to the east of North Carolina as probably a stronger Category 2 hurricane as we go into that Thursday, August 31st time frame. Of course, there are what we do know and what we don't know here. So what we do know is that there will be a tropical system. That is pretty much a given as it has a 90% chance of development. It will impact the state of Florida in some shape or form. So we do know that. What we still don't know is how strong are the impacts with the winds, the storm surge, the flooding, and the heavy rain. How much rainfall accumulation do we see? We still don't know that. It really depends on the intensity, and that's the next thing we're talking about here. What is the intensity of the storm? Is it just a tropical storm, or is it a hurricane at landfall? Right now, it's trending towards a Category 1 hurricane at landfall, especially when considering the shear that is more favorable and the warmer water temperatures. And will the storm impact the Carolinas? It looks like in some shape or form right now the coastal Carolinas are more in play with this here as we go through that next week's time frame. And the next name here on the list in the Atlantic Ocean is Idalia. So the next name this will get is Idalia here as long as the other systems out in the North Atlantic don't get named. Otherwise it would be Jose. So we'll continue to watch that for next week. The Eastern Pacific is busy, but not as busy actually as the Atlantic. We do have a fish storm trying to develop out here into the portions of the Eastern Pacific. That's going to be moving away from North America. A little bit of a system, pretty much nil chance of development really, just producing some heavier rain for southern Mexico over the next few days. But if a new name is known there in the Eastern Pacific, this will be Irwin or even Java. So we'll continue to watch that over the next few days. Closer to home, it is a nice sight to see. We actually have the excessive heat warnings a lot less abundant than we saw the last few days. Unfortunately, we still hang on to the excessive heat warnings for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Shreveport, Jackson, Mississippi, Memphis, all the way up to just south of the St. Louis metro area there. We still have those heat advisories. We still have those excessive heat warnings and even some red flag warnings down there into Louisiana and southeast Texas, where we have the dry soils combined with winds and also the heat out there as well. So looking at the geopotential height, this is what shows where the heat is this weekend in the atmosphere. This is Saturday into Sunday. The northern periphery of that is across the Great Lakes in the Northeast, so enjoy the nice cooler weather up there with some northwest flow. The heat will be backing off to the south and west. The center of high pressure will be back down here into the Four Corners and the southern plains states here as we go through the weekend. As we go into early next week, Monday into Tuesday, the heat backs off a little bit further to the west, so the Rockies, the Intermountain West, we're going to start to heat up as we go into early next week, but the majority of the eastern United States, really east of the Rockies, will start to cool down in a big way as we get into early next week and really extending through much of next week as well. So here's your high temperatures this afternoon. We're still up to 108 there in Dallas-Fort Worth and Wichita Falls, 106 in Shreveport, and 104 in the Jackson, Mississippi region. And we also have 90 spreading in across the Carolinas, the Delmarva. But look to the north. We have temperatures in the 70s, even 60s up here into the Arrowhead of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the UP of Michigan there on this afternoon. And then as we go into Sunday, much of the same, a lot of cooler weather. Yeah, look at that. Chicago lakefront. We're in the low 70s all the way up there into Milwaukee, Green Bay, Des Moines, 81 degrees there on Sunday, 78 there in the Twin Cities region. It's still hot down there in DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth at 103, 101 there in Shreveport on Sunday, but that front will be sagging further to the south. By the time we get to Monday, There is the relief, folks. Look at this. Not many hundreds on the board unless you live in the Rio Grande Valley here, the desert Southwest, or coastal Texas. It's just going to be pleasant, typical summertime time weather here, below normal temperatures for that matter, as we go into early next week. Lots of 70s, lots of 80s on the board. We finally get below 100 degrees in North Texas as we get into Monday. And then as we go into Tuesday, much of the same. You don't see many hundreds on the board, and that's where we see it, is across portions of Southern California, Southern Arizona, and Southern Nevada, where we really should be seeing the heat out there this time of year, and we see more typical summertime weather as we go into Tuesday across the southern United States. But don't get too used to the cooler weather now, because as we go into early September, there are changes again. The heat out west will begin to migrate a little bit further off to the east there during that first full week in September, from about September 1st, second time frame through September 7th and 8th, and the center of the high pressure ridge will be across the southern and central plains again. So we're going to be heating back up, probably back into the triple digits again for early September across Texas, Oklahoma, and parts of Kansas. And unfortunately, the reason for that is the negative feedback from the drought. We have widespread, extreme, and even exceptional drought really starting to take hold down here into eastern, southeastern Texas, getting into much of Louisiana here, and even parts of Kansas seeing that severe and extreme drought as well. And so the feedback from that will be drier soil heats up faster than than wet soil does. So those temperatures will be allowed to actually get much warmer as we even get into early September for those areas. And unfortunately, not seeing much help on the rainfall front either. Below normal precipitation is favored across the majority of the eastern United States here. Near normal precipitation in the middle there from the Dakotas down towards Colorado, and then above normal precipitation across the Pacific Northwest there, and even into Alaska, where we could be seeing some above normal precip going through the first full week in September. Here is your rainfall map for the next week. This goes through next Saturday, September 2nd, and you can see not much help from anything. Really, the tropics are going to be the name of the game here when it comes to precipitation. Could be seeing quite a bit of heavy rainfall down here near Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia. With that tropical system we're watching for next week, we could be seeing several inches of rain and some flooding down there. But the majority of the United States, besides the Pacific Northwest and up here into British Columbia, Alberta, Canada, will be rather dry going through the next 7 days across the United States. Well, if you want additional weather forecast updates, hit the description down below the video. The link to Twitter or X is down there. Follow me at hweather420. I do post on that platform fairly frequently throughout the week. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching today's video in its entirety. I do appreciate it. If you made it this far, make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. Also hit the like button, as it helps to get all this weather information out to more and more people. Share this video with friends, family, and on social media, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend out there.